My wife is listening in and she's hearing 72-hour battery life. She's getting all excited. Just saying.
Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Gettin 10-8. And with me tonight, my sidekick I've normally got with me on a regular basis. Everybody knows Mike Pontius. You know him, you love him. My daughter is in love with you, Mike. She just the other day she said, "I like him. He's funny. Keep having him on the show." So
I'll do it.
And down below me here on your screen, you see Richard Chapman, who we had on the last episode. And we got to talking about an event that happened in Richard's life, if you hadn't seen it. And I said, dude, I can find this guy. We're going to talk about what happened. And we have a new guest that you see on here. He's actually a working man still. You know, us three, Richard and Mike, we have no HR to deal with. We didn't have to ask any permission. Statute of limitations are done. We can come over here and say what we want now. But David, thanks so much for coming on. We have Mr. David Mapp. He is a paramedic. Richard, I'm going to let you start and just let's preface, because Mike wasn't quite clear on what happened that got you to meet David Mapp. And I kind of, with you two, I kind of wanted to get from my side, this is what I thought, and then from my side, this is what I saw when I came up. So, Richard, take it away, sir.
All right. Well, first off, happy to see you again, David. And I'm glad it's under different circumstances.
Yes, for me too. Me too.
But almost 3 years ago, I think the 28th of September, 3 years ago, I was just outside of Richardson, Mississippi. I was working on a deer stand on our deer lease up there. And I was standing in the bucket front end loader of my tractor while my son-in-law was at the controls. And I don't know, the reports vary, but they said 8 to 10 feet in the air. And
wait, that's 8 to 10 feet. Your feet were 8 to 10 feet in the air. Right. You're 6'1", 6'2", so you're 14 foot up in the air with that noggin, huh?
6 foot, yeah. Anyway, something happened. Next thing I knew, I was going out the bucket backwards. And as I went out, you know, they say that in crises like that, time slows down, and it did. Because as I went out, I knew immediately I'm not going to get flipped over fast enough to avoid landing on my head. And sure enough, I didn't. I landed on my head and neck. And in case you're interested, yes, when you break your neck, you feel it and you hear it. And ended up rolling up on my butt against the wheel of the tractor. And I was not paralyzed, but it was like electricity was shooting through my body at 1,000 volts. And I was just kind of sitting there numb. And my buddy was with me, Irvin Rippey. I saw him running towards me, and I told him, I said, "Don't move me, call an ambulance," as I fell over.
And now, keep in mind, you are the hook and bull as far as medical knowledge goes at this deer camp.
I was the most medical person there.
Right.
And so I fell over into an ant bed, and they did as I told them. They didn't move me. And I lay there. I don't know. It seemed like a long time to me. But at some point, finally, I heard other voices, And I think the first guy there, correct me if I'm wrong, David, was the game warden.
Yeah, yes, sir. He was an off-duty game warden, which is also a first responder in that area as well.
And then David and his partner showed up, and I regret I never got your partner's name, but so David showed up, and I saw they were ambulance crew, and I saw they had a backboard, and immediately the supervisor in me kicked in. I said,
Yep.
"Is one of you a paramedic?" David said, "I sure am." I said, "All right, let's get on the phone. Let's get some orders. We need an IV, and I need some morphine on board as fast as you can do it." And he gave me a really quizzical look, like, "Who is this idiot?"
Tell me what to do.
And I said, "Man, I was a paramedic for years. I know the deal." I said, "Just do it." And he said, "Well, I got some good news for you." He said, "Times have changed since your day." He said, "I don't have to call the doctor. I'm going to get an IV in you." He said, "But I'm going to give you something better than morphine." I said, "What are you going to give me?" He said, "Fentanyl." And immediately I started flashing all the headlines going, "Oh, wait.
No.
Don't want none of that.
And that's my exact statement was, I said, "Ain't that the shit that's killing people?" And he said, "Don't worry, I won't." And for a paramedic to stand over you and say, "I promise I won't kill you," I felt warmly comforted by that. So,
Hey, that's a promise I would have never made.
so that was basically it. So he started an IV. They got me, of course, they got me mobilized, got the C collar on, all that stuff, and they were doing all the tests. And I was telling him, I got sensation, I got movement, I got all that. Just get the IV in. And so they got the IV in, started giving me fentanyl, and I got to tell you, fentanyl ain't bad, but it ain't morphine.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I've been wanting to ask Dave this question. They always say that medical people make the worst patients, and I just got to know, was I as much of an asshole as I probably think I was?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he was a bad patient at all.
One, he knew his medical history.
Yeah. So when I got there, he started barking orders at me, and I'm like, all right, this cat knows more than what the general eye meets. So, and then I discovered he was a paramedic. He said, I've been retired, and I was like, okay. So tell me what's hurting, and he said it felt like a jolt of lightning was going through his body, and he said I've had multiple spine issues in the past over the years, and I think there's something seriously wrong with me. Now, going into the woods, we parked the ambulance on the side of a pig trail road and go about a mile in the woods, it seems like, on the back of a pickup truck. So as we're going in, I'm replaying in my mind that I get everything I need. I got my backboard C collar, I got my monitor, I got my jump bag, I got narcs. And when we get there, I see how far up the tree stand is, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot more to this than what the eye meets based off what I read on the screen. And then
Right.
I go to him and start talking to him, and he tells me all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot going on more than just what
Meets the
your
eye.
fall bump, Humpty Dumpty, So,
Yep.
and that's when I made a decision. Let's try to get a helicopter to try to come get him. And
Best
I
move you could have made, David. Best move you could have made.
I think so too, considering his history. So, the service I work for, they probably got some of the best state of the art equipment, not only for the helicopters but for the ambulances, so they can pinpoint you down to within less than 10 feet of where you're actually at on the truck. And I told them where I was at. Rescue 7 gets launched, and as they're coming, something happens, something changes, and then they said, "Well, Rescue 5's coming." Well, that's coming out of Gulfport. But Richard was like, I was telling him that, and he's like, "Well, that's where I want to go anyway." I was like, "Well, I can't take you there, but when they get here, they'll make that decision." And he was like, "Well, that's where I want to go." I was like, "Well, that's probably where they'll take you if that's where you want to go." But based off of what he was telling me, I knew that putting him in the back of a 15,000-pound ambulance beating him down the road was not going to make anything better. I don't know the
And
exact time.
And those units, they are not built for comfort. They're built for
They are not.
transport.
They are
And
not.
a lot of people don't think about this, but on that ambulance, one, you're in a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton vehicle, and your patient
Right.
is laying over the rear wheel over where that on the driver's side. So every bump,
Absolutely.
it's like riding a buckboard in.
On a
It's not like
comfortable.
the
Yep.
it's not like the good old days when they had those Cadillac hearses that gave you a smooth ride. Of course, we didn't have room to do anything in those.
David,
Yeah.
what did the call come in as? What was the mechanism they gave? Did you think gunshot or did they fall?
It was a fall. It come in as a fall. Service I work for has got a very good E&D program that they go by. I think they use Priority One E&D system, and it went very flawless considering other than the hiccup with the helicopter, which I mean that's out of control. But other than time, people say the golden hour, but was it really golden hour at the point you're concerned about his C spine? And I wasn't worried about the time. I was more worried about the movement than I was anything, because considering his history, because he was very detailed, which immediately right off the bat was like, okay, he knows more than the general public the way he's describing his injuries.
Did y'all put him
And
on a scoop or a Stokes, or you just put him on a regular board with straps?
I think he was on a scoop stretcher, if I remember correctly. I think that's what I got him up with, was a scoop stretcher. But I knew I had to wait a long time, and I actually tried to call Met Control and be like, hey, I got this guy that's fell out of a bucket of a tractor, and I waited too long, so I called my QA guy, which is I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with, is Scott, and I was like, hey, look, I tried to call Met Control. I got this old guy. He's got a lot of injuries. He's explaining it detail for detail. I'm very suspicious that he's got some kind of fracture in his C spine. He's like, just do what you got to do, watch your vitals, and go on about your business until you get him taken care of. I was like, okay, and that's what I did. I think I ended up giving him close to 200 of fentanyl, or a little more than 200 of fentanyl, and
That's micrograms, right?
yeah,
Micrograms.
micrograms. Yep,
Okay.
yep. So, and the goal is today is not to take the pain completely away, but to manage the pain.
You didn't.
Yeah. Well,
You didn't.
he quit complaining as much. He wasn't complaining as much. I'll say that. And we actually had to put him on the back of a truck and bring him out in the field down a very rough road, and we were very slow, like at a snail's pace coming out of there.
Like you
Because the
could have
helicopter
walked
couldn't
next to the truck, huh?
But they did. There were people.
Yeah. The game warden, the EMA at the time, Kobe Prime was there. They walked beside the truck. I mean, there were several people there, and we took a very slow pace to getting out of there. And when we finally did get to the blacktop, we put him back in the truck and took him half a mile down the road to a field. And when we took him down the road, met the helicopter, they wasn't there maybe 10 minutes, and they had him in the air. And I heard the report, and next thing I know, he was on the ground in Gulfport. Heard nothing else from him. I was like, well, that's just another one in the book. And several months later, I was flipping through Facebook, and I run across this story. I just was like, wow, okay, there's something about this that stands out. So let me poke and see what I find out. And one thing led to another. I sent him a private message, and we carried on a conversation, and I found out it was him. And I was very careful to tiptoe around the help of privacy law.
Right, right.
Get into that, and because I'm very cautious like that. And he just come out and told me, hey, that was me. That you had as a patient. So it's very rare in this line of work. And I know that y'all know this, but it's very rare that you get to see from beginning to end, especially someone that's like legitimately hurt.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I never doubted anything he said. I felt confident. Hey, this is a real deal. This is what I went to school for. This is what I'm here for. Based off what he's saying, this is textbook. Hey, he's got something legitimately wrong, and he did. So, to be able to
Shocked that I didn't have any neurologic deficit.
No,
know.
you've always had neurologic deficit.
Any new neurologic deficit.
There
No,
you go.
because
Good job.
you know you were very detailed with your medical history. Even I asked when we started assessing you, you were like that all works. I feel all that, and I was like, okay, well he's a little ornery about want me to assess him head to toe, but he answered all my questions, and I felt confident in my decision to put him on a helicopter. Very confident, and I'm thankful that I made that decision.
That's probably the first time I've been called ornery in my whole life.
Bullshit.
I mean, you were trying to be a little blunt with it. Hey, this is what's wrong with me. I know what's wrong with me.
So I was a little bit of an asshole.
Yeah, I remember you saying need to call my wife, need to tell her what happened, tell her I'm okay. And I believe your son-in-law was there, and I'm sure he was afraid of the repercussions he was about to endure for allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Well,
And to this day, he catches hell because everybody accuses him of trying to kill me. It had nothing to do with him. He just happened to be at the controls at the time. I still give him hell about it every now and then.
Did he hit the valve or the stick, or do we know?
No, I think what I think happened was I had actually placed the bucket myself because he didn't know how to operate it.
Right.
So I had actually placed the bucket. It was a shooting house. And I had placed the bucket against it, and then I climbed up into the bucket. And I think what happened was at some point, the shooting house shifted, and there was a little bit of slack, tension there. And when it shifted, it dropped the bucket just enough to throw me off balance. That's my theory on what happened. So.
Mike, we already had the fall protection discussion on the last episode, and the OSHA discussion about this, and then Richard revealed. Richard, tell us what you did after you retired from the fire department.
I went to work for a friend of mine who had just started a business working on cell phone towers. And he had like 4 employees, and I went to work helping him. And I retired at 42 and went climbing 500-foot cell phone towers.
I remember when you were doing that.
Huh? Now, tell them when you retired from there, tell them what your title was.
I did it. I was there for 17 years.
At a safety
6 years of it, I was the safety director. And
oh my.
my job was to when they brought in these new 18, 19-year-old kids, was to teach them every time you're 6 feet off the ground, you better be bonded or you'll fall and die. And so, yeah, my job was to teach them that. And so, I felt a little foolish. And ironically, a few months later, I was in a sea collar and everything. And a friend of mine was driving me down the road, and the guy that owned the tower business was right up the road from me. We passed by, and the safety director that took over my job was conducting a class. They got a tower out there where they train the guys to climb it. And I told my buddy, I said, pull over here, pull over. And he pulled in the parking lot, and I got out wearing my sea collar and walked up there at the base of the tower, and the guy hit it. Billy looked over at me and said, really? You're going to show up like that? I said, everybody's good for something. I'm good as a bad example. So.
How not to set a deer stand.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
well, yeah. I went to buy a new Kubota tractor the other day over here on I-10, and on the bucket it says no standing. I said, that's got to be a Richard Chapman.
I'm pretty sure mine says it too. I just don't read it.
I didn't go. I got to tell you, Richard, I am a hunter's ed instructor in Mississippi.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
use me as an example if you'd like to.
I did. I didn't say your name, but I said a good friend of mine that was a paramedic for years. He was a rescue fireman and a paramedic, and I worked with his brother, and I worked with him, and he was working on a shooting house, and he fell. So don't think the only time you wear your fall protection when you go up at heights is when you're hunting. that counts as a hunting incident when you didn't have a gun anywhere near you. It was before season, right? So
Right.
You had a snake gun with you, right?
There was probably a snake gun around somewhere.
Yeah, if he's breathing, he's got a snake gun. If he's anything like his big brother.
Well, let me back up a minute. When I was laying there on the backboard in the ants, and they would every now and then they would reach under me and try to sweep some of the ants off. David, you ought to see the pictures of my back at the
I've
hospital.
got those too.
I know you recovered in them. I do know that.
Oh yeah.
I think we used a shirt or a rag or something to wipe them off.
David, you're supposed to piss on him to get rid of the ants.
I wouldn't have cared. I would not have cared one bit.
Especially if it worked.
Yeah.
See, it works.
But when I was laying there, he told me, he said, well, Rescue 7's on the way. I said, okay. And I said, well, Hattiesburg, they won't be here long. And then he said, oh, they got canceled. They're sending a chopper out of Gulfport. And right away, I'm kind of a meteorology buff, you know, and a cold front had just passed through. So it was a strong north wind. And I'm a licensed private pilot. And so I said, oh shit, they're coming out of Gulfport. They're going to be fighting the headwind all the way. And sure enough, I think it took them about an hour to get there, or at least it felt like it to me.
I think they had a 35, 40-minute ETA is what their ETA was, something like that.
And so when I heard that helicopter, I said, thank God they're here. And I watched them. I'm laying there and I can see, you know, peripherally. And I watched them come in and they were looking for a place to land. Well, my food plot was right there. And my another shooting house was there. I said, go kick that shooting house over. Make all the room you need. I don't care. And
I ain't using it.
I watched that helicopter come down and come down, come down, come down, and it got maybe 20 feet off the ground and flew away. And that was probably the low point in all this, when he flew away, because I knew they're not going to be able to land here and they got to get me out of here some other way. And when he flew away, I told David, I said, tell him to look for that green field south of him and land there, because I knew the guy that owned that. And in fact, he was on the scene there. And so that's where they went and landed in his field. But then they had to put me in the back of the pickup truck and bring me out. That was pleasant.
But I can only imagine.
I was very concerned about even doing that based off of what Richard was saying, because I knew how rough the terrain was going in there.
Really, really bad.
The road terrain was very, very rough.
The truck had to be in four-wheel drive, if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
Hey, David, is Decadron part of a spinal cord protocol?
It's not in our protocol that I recall. I don't think so. No.
I know they'd done a head injury study on it at one time, massive doses, but I thought I'd read something towards the end of my career, maybe post-career. So I've been off the truck. The training was my last rides, I guess, but I thought they had done something about Decadron for spinal cord injuries for some reason.
Not for us. We don't have that. You know, I have seen some literature on that.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot changed. There's a lot changed in my little time that I've been doing this, just as a paramedic. For that matter, a lot's changed since I got in this almost 18 years ago.
Well, just imagine what it's like for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine lugging a Life Pack 5 around. You know, I couldn't imagine what that would be like.
I'm so old, we had to carry around a generator and a couple of rods.
Richard got his paramedic in 81. I got mine in 88. Mike, you got yours in 88 too, huh?
I got mine in 83.
83?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me tell you a funny story about Decadron. And this goes way back. I'm a brand new paramedic, and we got a call for a car wreck at Courthouse in 90. It was a bad car wreck. And we had a patient with severe head injuries. Well, back then we carried 2 10-milligram vials of Decadron.
Yep.
And typically when you got an order for it, it'd be like, give them 2 milligrams of Decadron, wait 10 minutes, give him 10 more, 2 more, whatever. It was just, tiny.
Piecemeal it in there. Yeah.
Well, so I go to a car wreck. We got to jaws out. We got to get them out and all that stuff. I get an IV going while they're doing it. And I called hospital and I said, I want to give Decadron. I got Dr. Ray Stewart. I don't know if you remember Ray Stewart. Okay. Ray was old school physician. Matter of fact, he was so old school, the first time he gave me orders for morphine, he gave it in grains.
Now I got to do some calculus in my head.
Oh, 60 grains.
No, he told me, give him 15 grains.
Yeah.
That ought to do it. Thanks very much, Ray.
I started doing the math. I went, holy crap, that's a lot of morphine, because a grain is like 10 milligrams, isn't it? Something like that.
Looking at the vial, I can't remember off the top of my head.
But anyway,
you got me looking it up. Hold on.
So anyway, I called Dr. Stewart and I tell him I got a severe head injury. I think this patient needs some Decadron. And Dr. Stewart was my doctor growing up. So he and I, anytime I could call him and say, hey, can I start brain surgery? And he'd say, go ahead,
Do what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, he calls and he says, give him 60 milligrams of Decadron. Okay.
That's a lot.
So I ran around. I had 10 or 20. Bobby Kennedy was a paramedic back then. I said, let's rob your kit. Anyway, I came up with 44 milligrams of Decadron with all the paramedics there. It was probably me and him and Gil Bailey. I forget who, but between all the paramedics on the scene, we came up with like 44 milligrams of Decadron. So I gave him 44 milligrams of Decadron. I mean, you can't really hurt him,
Yeah.
And so then I go back, and of course, then we used paper reports, and I filled out my paper report, gave patient 44 milligrams of Decadron. Boy, that ain't a big red flag for auditor. And auditor happened to be
The Bhagwan.
Steve Delahousie. So if they wanted to audit you on something, you get this little pink slip in your mailbox.
In your box.
And you had to go see him. So I get the pink slip, which if I'd have kept them all, I'd have had a book of them. But I get the pink slip and I go to him and he lays that in front of me. And he says, why did you give a patient 44 milligrams of Decadron?
Is this all we had?
Doctor's orders, and we couldn't find any more.
All I said was, because I didn't have 60.
There you go. Perfect. I love it.
And he went, what? I said, I got an order for 60 milligrams. I couldn't find that much. I gave him what I could find. It was 44 milligrams. Who gave that order? I told him. He said, all right, that's it. You can go.
Doctor that signed that form right there.
Yep.
Yeah, the one that's read that signature that well. Good luck reading it. All right, so here's your answer. 15 grains of morphine is 971.98 milligrams.
Holy crap.
It's damn near a gram of morphine.
I think you missed a decimal. Maybe it's 1.5 grains.
Well, when he gave me that
Possibly,
order,
but 1 grain is
still
64.798 milligrams.
Now,
That's a lot.
well, no, you know what it was? I got that wrong. He told me give him a grain of morphine, which is 60 milligrams.
Yeah, 65 milligrams.
And I didn't want to have that conversation. Why did you give him 65 milligrams? So I did the math real quick and I told him, I said, Doc, I don't have that much. I said, why don't we start with 2 milligrams and titrate it? He said,
there you go.
Okay,
Titrate to effect.
that's what the vial says. 1 grain, 60 milligrams on it.
Yeah.
That's what it says on the side. It's got the 1 GR and then 60 mg. I think it's what it says on it, if I'm not mistaken.
Morphine. And I went, okay.
Now,
But, and Yes, back in the day, that's what they did. They just slammed them with morphine. They quit breathing. They quit breathing.
Just
That's what you got a demand valve for.
Mhm.
plus that lung. They blow up balloons pretty good too.
Look, I got to tell you this, David, too. You haven't lived until you had to fill your portable O2 bottles yourself with the Cascade system. Putting that portable O2 bottle in a bucket of water and going through one bottle, closing that valve off, going to the next bottle. You remember that, Richard?
I remember changing that some bitch out.
Oxygen or
Yeah,
Oxygen. Yeah.
no? You know where we got? Gosh, I may not say that. You know where we got our oxygen on the rescue trucks?
Where's that? Norden Welding Supply?
Welding shop.
Yeah. No, that's medical grade. That's what they delivered ours too. But you
Oh,
remember 11th Street in the storage room and the parking lot?
In the back, yeah.
4 H tanks with a
We
with
never
a
filled
gas-
it. Swapped them out.
Yeah,
Yeah, y'all swapped them out with us, but when you came and worked at Mobile Medic, you
refilled your
well,
portable.
you sent your EMT ambulance to go in there and do that for you. You were in your white shirt sitting up there drinking coffee and talking about the next
You gotta
emergency
remember, when I
call.
was paramedic at Mobile Medic, there weren't but a handful of us.
Yep.
We were riding around in our Suburban. We thought our shit didn't stink. So, you know.
Yeah, you had Albritton, Carter,
Gary
Stanton,
Hargrove.
you, Gary Hargrove,
Idell.
and Sandy Dubas. Suzanne Powell came over. Gary Shirley came over. They came.
They were kind of at the end of my. Suzanne and Gary were kind of at the end of mine.
Right.
I got to tell you this. Kevin Gross. You remember Kevin Gross? Huh?
Moose.
Yeah, Moose.
Yeah.
And he's married to Kelly Neeson. Okay. My daughter is a veterinarian. And today she was working and she took a patient for another doctor that was busy. And the guy came in and he's talking to her. And he said he seemed pretty intelligent when it came to, medical stuff. She said, "You got a medical background?" He said, "Well, I was a paramedic and firefighter at Gulfport for 30 years. She said, "Oh, you knew Richard Chapman." He said, "Not only did I know him, I lived across the street from him." And she said, "Oh, you had a boxer." Now, there's a reason they call him Moose.
Oh yeah.
He's a big old boy. So he come up and he knocked on the door, and I just went to the door and I said, "Before I open it, do I need a gun?" He said, No. I said, "Okay." So he came in and we talked. So, and it all worked out. I ran into him not too long, a couple of years ago, and we joked about it and all that stuff. But my daughter, she's like me. She never knows when to shut her mouth. As soon as he said, "Yeah, I lived across the street," she said, "Oh, you had a box."
You were pretty good at saving dogs that were involved in house fires, dogs and cats.
Dog and cat,
Front page of the paper.
yeah. I saved several of them. Matter of fact, I had a dog that had a litter, and one of them was stillborn, and I resuscitated it.
We got one on Tea Garden Road that you resuscitated. I remember a fire on Tea Garden Road down just south of the tracks, maybe.
Really?
I think it was Tea Garden, one of those streets in that area that crossed the tracks.
Yeah, well, I stayed sick forever, so it would have been in that area.
Yeah, and you resuscitated the dog, put a tube in.
So y'all know you can transport a canine, a police canine now. That's actually state law that allows us to do that.
I think I heard that somewhere.
That's I think that's about a 4 or 5 year old law now, but they implemented that several years ago.
And treat them, huh?
They've
Yep.
been talking.
You can treat them and everything. So
Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't know how to go about starting an IV on a dog. I can intubate them. I've intubated several of them, but
You hit that cephalus.
that arm and twist it and stick it.
No. Their front paw, where their hand breaks over, they got a cephalus vein right in there. You shave it down to where you can see it, huh?
It's a pretty prominent vein.
Oh yeah.
What is it? Osteo infusion?
Oh, IO,
IO?
interosseous. Yeah. I I have now look. This is how old a medic I am, David. I have never done an IO. I learned how to do it in a refresher class at one time. I never did an IO.
I'm gonna say I'm a Jones medic, and I don't know if that means anything to y'all, but
Joe
I, I,
Jones,
I was
absolutely.
well. I had Joe Jones as my EMT, but I went to Jones Junior College, which is
Oh,
Jones
okay.
College now,
Right.
and it wasn't. We wasn't pushed to do O's. We were. Hey, you're here to be a paramedic. You're here to do the right thing. We're not
Yep.
the easy way out. We're gonna do what's best for the patient. Now, was it frowned upon? No, but I probably hadn't put maybe 5 in 9 years of being an actual paramedic. So
Yeah.
I just I it's not my go-to. And that's what's being taught now. Try it once. If that ain't successful, you go
Go to
IO.
the IO. Yeah,
Ray
that's
told me the same thing. He just passed his paramedic. He's a firefighter medic from Biloxi. And we were talking one day about IV therapy and how we used to stick people in the classroom. And Chuck Leidig would let us intubate him in the classroom. And he
Really?
said, yeah, he said, man, we never stuck anybody in the classroom. If you didn't get it in clinicals, I said, well, y'all still do IOs? He says, one stick and drill.
Really?
That's
Yep.
it.
That's what's taught today.
Wow.
which
I just infection. That's all I see on IOs, infection.
I remember going to a class where we used chicken legs to practice, but I never stuck one.
no.
Of course,
I
we're
didn't.
from old school when mass trousers really worked.
Yep. Hey, you know when I use mass trousers the most?
Pelvic fractures.
Yeah.
Full arrest.
Really?
They reduce
Hell
your
yeah.
circulatory volume.
I don't think I ever used
Quit
it.
quit trying to pump down to the feet. Just keep it all in the organs.
Put a body condom on them and pump the chest only.
Was that part of our protocol?
No.
No.
It's part of mine.
I don't remember doing that. I used it for a lot like femur fractures and stuff like that. And they say they don't use them anymore because they don't work. Well, that's bullshit.
Yeah,
I
they
can't
work.
gunshot
There,
victims. I,
there's actual research out discussion about bringing them back.
really?
Yeah, yes, sir. There is. There's a serious discussion about bringing them back.
I had a shooting victim that was unconscious, and I'd put the trousers on them and inflate them, and they'd wake up and start talking to me without any other, no IV, no nothing. Just, you know,
Right.
they work. I don't know why they quit using them, but
You're using the same mass trousers on this patient as you did the next. We'd clean them. We'd use bleaching water and clean them. But
You ain't getting the GI bleed out of them trousers. They will
no,
stink the rest of their life.
absolutely. Absolutely. Your whole
God.
truck will smell like GI bleed if you undo that zipper of those trousers. But yeah,
hey,
that's
if I'm the victim and I'm going to smell like GI trousers, but it saves my life, go right ahead.
It wasn't
Yeah.
you. It was in the ambulance. You had to smell it all day long.
but I mean
bleeds and burns are the worst.
Yep. Yep.
I can get the burn out of my nose, and you can get it out of the truck by airing it out. But that gid gets into that freaking fabric of them trousers and into the Velcro. And brother, there ain't nothing you can do. You put too much bleach, they dry rot. Because they got a rubber bladder with a nylon over thing. You put bleach on that son of a gun too much, and next thing you know, you're gonna blow it up one day, and it's gonna poof.
Yep.
Yep.
Damn.
Right when you need it is when it'll fail. Or
Yeah.
that's what
I
Murphy
like
says.
that we have a lot of stuff that's reusable, but it's also disposable.
Yeah.
So I got a question. Back in my day, David, it's for you. Back in my day, we had D5W, we had ringers,
And normal saline.
Hey, Lane.
normal saline. What are y'all using now?
So we got my primary service I work for. We have LR and we have normal saline and we have D10 and D5.
Damn.
Oh, okay.
You D5 for your pediatrics, D10s for your adults, but
Back then, we didn't differentiate.
Yeah, so it varies what kind of patient you're trying to treat. What do you go with?
Yeah.
And if you're an intermediate and you got D5W, you set up a macro.
Yeah,
'Cause
so they don't even recognize intermediates no more. Now it's just advanced.
That's what
They
I
call
do.
it's relabeled as advanced, which is the same thing as intermediate, or it eventually will. They'll have more than just your regular intermediate. So when I got in EMS, that was starting to fade out, and I thought, why would you do that? Looking back now, versus where it was then versus what it is now, we're reinventing the wheel right back where it started at.
Let's
But-
go back to that, Richard. So ringers was trauma,
Right.
Yep.
was non-trauma.
What? D5 was non-trauma. D5 was like cardiac and
That it was an isotonic solution, so your drugs would get absorbed more readily into the body.
right. And
So
you
the saline was for medical.
Isotonic, it was
You
fine.
had to get drugs.
Isotonic, it was fine. It'd go in, and lactated ringers was hypertonic, so it was staying in the veins. It was your volume replacement. That's how we turn.
You take saline.
That's how we turn blood into Kool-Aid.
If I remember right, normal saline, you could use it in a pinch.
Yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't remember the breakout on that.
All right, let me ask you this. You remember Steve Delahousie's class on how to treat pediatric drugs? All right. Steve and Bill Markopoulos was my paramedic instructors. And, you had to learn all the drug dosages for adults and PDs and all
And then
this.
for peds, yeah.
And of course, it's all, so many milligrams per kilogram or micrograms per kilogram. And I asked Steve one time, I said, Steve, you don't have a scale. I don't have a kid. I didn't have a kid at the time. I said, I don't know how much that kid weighs. He said, look at them. If they look about the fourth the size of an adult, give them the fourth of the adult size,
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I use that formula,
Yep. Yep. Well,
I don't recall that, but I guess I'd accept it.
I mean, he told me, he said, this is not, it was kind of unofficial advice. He said, look, you need to memorize the formulas, and I did. But he said, in the heat of the moment, if you're trying to get a heartbeat back or whatever, if you got to, rough guess it, do what you got to do. Because at that point, they can't get no worse.
Yeah, they did.
So.
I do remember something about that, Richard. I do recall that, but I think, there was something about I know the nose size, and I do remember something about gauging weight, but I don't know if it was a fourth of an adult. I don't remember.
they didn't make us, we couldn't call for respiratory therapy to come get an ABG for us, but they damn sure made us learn that acid-base balance so we could tell if it was metabolic or respiratory acidosis.
Which you wouldn't know until you got to the hospital if you knew.
Exactly. It's not like they had a truck that was coming behind us and taking an ABG for us. So
you mentioned pediatrics.
Yep.
I like to use the hand TV. That seems to work real well. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that, but it's
The what?
the hand TV. You take your hand, you say 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, and then it's 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 kilograms.
Well, hell, that would be nice if they taught us that.
I actually carry a badge reference card on my badge that I carry, so it's easy to look at. It's probably the most accurate as far as treating a patient.
yeah.
In our defense, when we were doing it, I mean, I was in the second class they taught on the coast, and I was told that when I became a paramedic, and I passed the first time out, by the way, Uh, I was told that at the time I became a paramedic, there were 19 of us in the entire state, and the bulk of us were on the coast.
Yep.
And so we were a little bit, I guess, the Wild West of ALS at that time.
Yep. That's close enough. That's close enough.
Richard, you don't get the freaking prize. You got to go 10.
Back from that break, I tell you what, it was much needed on my part. So we were talking about the differences in EMS from back when us old guys were out there. And David, you're teaching us a lot. I'm going to tell you, at one point I decided I was going to go through the refresher class and go challenge the registry for the EMT basic. I said, yeah, I'll just go challenge it to basic. Talk to the registry, and they said, oh yeah, you're MP8 26850. They said you can go back and challenge all the way up for paramedic if you want. And I went to a refresher in Hattiesburg, a AAA refresher, and I realized real quick EMS has just completely changed from when I went through it. And they said, by a show of hands, raise your hand if you ever wrote on a paper report. You know, of course, I put my hand up, and then they said, I look around, and there's 3 of us in there that have written a paper report, and there's 20 people in this class. I said, by show of hands, how many people have never written anything but a paper report? And I was the only one in there with my hand up.
When I first got in, this was in 2007, 2008. The company that I worked for was transitioning. They were starting the transition from paper to digital.
Right.
I have written paper reports, but I probably hadn't written 100 of them in my career, if I'm even close to that.
So
most of them have been refusals or whatever. So
how do you get the pink slip on a digital report? Does it come in your email? Hey, come talk to me.
So no, it's just like email. That it depends on what software you got. They'll send it back and it'll show up. It'll show up and say, hey, it's in QA or the current system that we just swapped to the service I'm at full time is Angel Track. Literally, it is a click of a button and it tells you what's wrong. It tells the QA person I have that works the 2 QA people I have. They review probably 150 calls a day, depending on what day of the week it is. So they pretty accurate with it. And literally, it's just a click of a button to send it back, and you put in the QA, what's wrong with them, what's wrong with the report, and then you wait for the crew member to come back, and they check it off and they fix whatever needs to be or justify what they did, and that's it. And it's all a digital print from there.
Hey, Robbie, if you didn't respond to a QA in your box soon enough, you try to go 10-8 on the truck, they say negative. Step in, supervisor. You got a QA, you got to answer.
That's right.
Look, I don't remember who it was. I don't want any names, but after Delahousie left Mobile Medic, a new guy came in, took his place. All I remember was he was ex-Air Force, I think. And he did not like me. And it didn't matter what I did, I was getting a pink slip. And every time I would go on a call, I'd go in there and I had to explain to him, well, here's what it was, And it became obvious to me that this guy, he had a lot of training, but not a lot of experience.
Right.
Book-wise, he was a genius, okay? And every time I turned in a report, he had it in for me, seemed like, and I'd get called in. So you would get the pink slip and you could write a response and send it back. And then depending on what you said, if you went, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, then they might accept that or whatever. Or if they weren't happy with whatever you responded, then you had to go in and sit down with them. So this guy, it didn't matter. I could go out on a infected toenail, I'd get audited. And finally, I got a call. I got a pink slip, and I wrote in my response, I said, those who can do, those who can't teach. And I sent it back. It did not go over well.
Look, you know, that Nancy Caroline book I had when I went through paramedic school, I have tried to throw that on a bench seat and sleep through a call. You just can't get away with that. You actually have to lay hands on the patient. That book knew way more than me, but I still had to be the one putting hands on the patient.
Yeah. I sent that back, and it wasn't satisfactory. I had to go meet face to face, and he threw it in front of me and said, "What does this mean?" I said, "Just what it says." He said, "Well, why don't you tell me what you think it means?" I said, "What it means is those of us that know what we're doing," and at the time I thought I knew what I was doing.
We're out here doing it, just doing it.
Those of us that know what we're doing are out there doing it. And those of us that only know how to teach it are sitting back criticizing us.
Right.
That didn't go over well. And I'm not saying I was right and he was wrong. I'm just saying that was my attitude at the time.
Yep.
I remember that attitude, Richard.
Now, let me ask you this, Richard. Who did your QA/QC for Gulfport Fire?
Nobody. It was done through Paramedic.
It was done by Mobile Medic?
Our medical control was through Mobile Medic. Yep. Okay, so Dr. Sawyer was our medical control doctor. Steve Delahousie was the supervisor. He was the one that did the quality assurance stuff for a long time, and then I forget this other person, but he did it. I'll be the first one to admit that I was not easy to manage because
you were hard.
That's why I say
with age, trust me.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you. The question is for David, your stretcher. Are y'all using the assist, the hydraulic stretchers now in your units?
So we don't have the power loads, but the self loaders. But yes, we have power stretchers. They're some of them are hydraulic, and some of them are just regular. I don't know the technical term for it, but we just converted from striker to Furno.
Damn.
And when I got in EMS, we had Furnos. You know, you had to have the 2 clicks in order for it to stay up, or it'd go to the damn ground faster you could get it up.
Well, we had the M30.
That's the old aluminum from the floor up.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've been in this administrator role with this service I'm at now for a year and about 4 days or so, maybe 5 days, and we just converted to Furno. And you know, people in EMS, they like to gripe and moan and groan and complain about everything.
Oh, not us, no.
And man, I'll gripe and complain about something in a heartbeat. But I have to say, you know, the night and day difference between a striker and a Furno, and it's just 2 buttons, up, down, minus and plus. It has a memory function that it memorizes where
load height.
The load height, it memorizes it to the truck. It's very nice now.
Well, when we were all on the truck, us 3 that are on here with you, we all had forearms that looked like Popeyes.
Well, not all of them.
Well, I did. It's because you had to do a reverse military curl with that stretcher. You had to pick it up. You'd get it so high, you still couldn't get the thing in the ambulance. So you'd have to lift it to about this high, you know, about chest high to get it in the ambulance. And let me tell you what, son, that's the ruin of a lot of our backs. That old M30.
I know I'm going to say a name that y'all probably all familiar or have heard, and that's Beverly Court.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I was very grateful for my almost 3 years of being her partner. Y'all know, if you know Beverly, she's short.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when we worked together at Stone County, we had manual strikers still. And
Ooh.
we done critical care, monitors, pumps, 3 pumps, and it was like second nature. And I didn't realize the amount of muscle you use lifting. And in our first weekend, she's like, I'm a 2 point lift. I was like, okay. We go halfway and then we finish the rest because I'm not tall. I was like, okay. And I've done that with her for almost 3 years. And then when I started paramedic school, I swapped services that would a better schedule for me. And I went to a power system, and I was like, man, I just added another 10 years to my career.
Right.
And then something happened to it, and you go back to a manual, like, holy hell, man, I didn't realize how much muscle tone you lose from going from power back to a manual.
Yep.
I mean, I could use one today, but it sure ain't my first choice.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
Where did this
I asked her,
occur?
I asked Beverly, I was like, so what kind of stretchers y'all have when you start? She's like, we went from the ground up.
Yep.
you
I was
went
That's
from
the
like,
over
M30.
to the ground and then
she
put the
said,
whole
she
thing
said
up.
they wasn't but one or two options, up or down.
Yep.
And that was it. I was like, holy smokes. There ain't no way. She's like,
Oh, yeah.
yep. Yep. I was like, I am so thankful for the times changing, knowing that. Because that there is brutal on a body.
Well,
Oh yeah. You don't have to tell us.
so they had the Model 30, which was it was one step above the mortuary, which basically was a fixed platform you rolled around. Matter of fact, it had a foot handle that had a 12-inch handle, and then it had a flip over handle. You by design, you were supposed to pull the stretcher like a wagon in the load position all the way to the ground. That's how you were really supposed to move a patient on it. So then they came out with the Model 29, I think, was the first H-frame swing undercarriage. And it was all fine and dandy. However, they started having collapses because it had a little ratchet bar. So you had to raise it from the ground up, and the person on the foot end had to literally push the carriage underneath it to get it to lock. If they didn't get it to lock, then you got a collapse. And then to load the thing in, you had to lift the head up another load height.
Yep.
And if they pulled the release
Another
handle
5-inch lift.
back, yeah, but if they're loading it up and you happen to let the safety latch too early, and the person on the other end's got a little finger grip, dude, they would drop to some bitch.
Yep.
So power cots really came along for more than one reason. That they were a liability reduction device as well as a back saver. And
So
they had the 93 ES and a couple other Furnos, and Furno went to shit, and Stryker came in and stormed through and took the market. And then they brought the power cot out, and Furno brought a power cot out, and it just turned into a game of tic-tac-toe. And it sounds like Furno's back in the lead again.
in my opinion, if I had a choice based off of what my field personnel say, Furno is the way to go, hands down. But you have so many different folding options, twisting, extending options with the Furno. I mean, Stryker does too, but the people, the reviews that the field people that use it every day, they say it's night and day difference between the two. And now it's even got a spot where you can make it like a hospital bed where it pulls up. A lot of geriatrics, they'll try to slide off the stretcher because they're fidgeting or whatever, and you can stop them from doing that now. It actually builds it like a recliner chair kind of.
Nice.
Yeah. So, the straps are a little bit more cantankerous now. I think it's a little bit more because liability or whatever. But they're color coded on the Furnos. The batteries, the Strikers. If you got 12 hours out of them, hey, that's a miracle. These Furnos we're going 2+ days without changing the batteries.
The
Oh, I
And we're
battery.
didn't
going,
even think about that. I didn't even
yeah.
think
So
about the batteries for that. So,
if you
do
get,
you have to have two stretchers? So when you run the batteries down on one, you roll it over there and plug it up, and you have another one that you throw on.
no, it's just another battery. Now
Yeah.
the batteries are interchangeable for the Furnos. They're $970, I think, what they are. We buy we buy a spare battery for every one we purchase.
So does it build
And
up a memory like the old Life Fact 5 batteries did?
no, they do not. That's one of the things. That's one of the selling points for the Furno is it does not build up a memory. Now I try to tell my people not to leave it on charge just to be safe because they're $970. But
Right.
I got crews that, work 72-hour shifts and they won't change the battery at all. And they do anywhere between 10 and 15 calls a day, on a busy day, and it rocks and rolls.
Cool.
Okay, no, we need to change the subject for a couple of
Right.
reasons. One, I have no idea what y'all are talking about when it comes to batteries and stretchers.
Oh, bless
Yeah.
it.
Two, my wife is listening in and she's hearing 72-hour battery life. She's getting all excited. Just saying.
Well,
See you later, Richard. You got to go.
I'm married well, is all I can say.
You
Okay.
did. You married up, that's for sure. I don't know how you outpunted your coverage, but you damn sure did.
so let me ask you this. I'm curious. So when y'all started, what kind of rendoscope did y'all use? Max, Millers, or
Miller.
was it both then?
Miller's.
Miller.
Baby. Non-fiber optic Miller. Batteries went out 90% of the time while you deep in the throat and you just figured it out.
All right, so next question. Curved or straight?
It's a Miller.
The Miller is straight. I was a straight dude.
I had both. I had both blades.
Yeah, we had both
Very
Millers and Max, but I preferred a Miller. Give me a number 4 Miller, I can intubate anything.
I
I would do a kid to a freaking adult from a no neck to a long neck. I could put a Miller 4 shovel in there and find the hole, I promise you.
I really prided myself on my technical skills. I always thought I was pretty good at intubating and starting IVs. But
Yep, you were.
my career as a paramedic, I always considered myself an underdog.
Oh, bruh.
No, you were. I
You're looked
was
up to,
not
bro.
joking when I said you were one of my heroes when I first started
telling you,
working
Jack.
down there.
I as a baby in this, I didn't realize what I was really learning when I was getting to the experience of working with some of these people.
Oh yeah,
There's
absolutely.
been times where I'm like, "Hey, I seen so and so do this," or "I seen so and so do this and it worked for them." And I've done that. Just because it's in a textbook or it's not in a textbook, don't mean it's off limits. If it's there's things you learn on the street that you'll never learn out of a textbook. That is sometimes what you have to do. I'm very thankful for that.
Well, when I was a baby EMT, Richard was the guy that I was looking up to, like you looked up to Beverly, and that's and Mike and I both, Richard and Mike Stanton and Tommy Carter and all those guys, they were there ahead of us.
By the way, he just came up and dove hunted with me yesterday, him and his son.
I figured he'd found a field. I saw him asking.
Yeah, I hooked him up. He was very happy.
Up in Richton?
No, at my house there.
I should have shot in the backyard. Them some bitches.
Wait,
it's a safe
I thought
spot.
you were in Gulfport proper.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I live off of.
All right, we're gonna change that. I'll take that out. I'll beep that out.
Look, I want to say this before I've already had one drink. My wife's trying to get me drunk and take advantage of me, so I want to say it before.
You better take her up on that, son.
I want to say this about. I want to tell David this because David don't know this. I got to the hospital. They put me in the helicopter. By the way, David, who is the flight nurse?
I think her name was Ashley, if I'm not mistaken. She was the medic that was had ARDS, I think, on the coast about a year or 2 years ago, or something like that. Maybe had a stroke. I don't remember. They done a lot of benefits for her.
Yeah, I seem to recall that. And all I can remember is everybody asked me later, said, "Man, did you see that good-looking nurse you had?" I said, "No." I was drunk. I was stoned.
I was looking up.
Not so
you're
fast
welcome.
on that address.
I wanted to tell David this because I may never get a chance to tell him again. I won't go into the details about my aftercare once I hit the hospital. There's some issues there. But I will tell you this, by the time they ended up sending me to Ochsner's for my actual surgery. And I was told by the doctor there that if I had not received the proper care that I needed up to that point, I'd have been dead or paralyzed. So I
That's
want
you, David.
partner and everybody involved to know that you know, it ain't often you get to, as a paramedic, it ain't often you get to understand that you really made a difference. And I want you to know that, excuse me, in this case, you made a difference.
I appreciate that. You know, me and Rob talked about that, and it's not every day you get to follow from beginning to end. And it was just a coincidence. I seen you post, you know, the after effects. You know, 3 or 4 months later, you posted that, and you know that. I mean, we're 26 days of being 3 years shy of when it happened. Yeah, it's very motivating. It's very encouraging to keep doing what I do. And there's been other things along the way, but nothing to this extent. It's very rewarding to be able to see the end to finish. And there's a lot of times that we don't get to do that. You know, this is very rewarding. You know, a lot of people call me, you know, a lot of bad names because I am who I am. Now that I know more about you, Richard, I think we've probably got a lot in common. You know, major years difference, but you know,
You're
you
an
said you're a
asshole.
difficult employee. I can be that employee.
You
I
in
have
good
been.
company, David.
Do what?
You're in
You're in
good
good company with all of us.
I am very thankful for the opportunity to be able to speak to you afterwards, knowing the extent of your injuries. I've got administrative experience. I don't get to work on the truck as much, and every now and then I do get to. And you know, today I got to tell some brand new 9 people was like, "Hey, this is the most rewarding job that you'll ever get to do. This is why we do what we do, even without knowing the end result."
It's
And
for the money. It's for the satisfaction of.
it damn
Damn
sure
sure
ain't for
ain't
the
for the
money.
money.
I can tell you that. So I'm thankful that you were willing to talk to me. I'm thankful that you responded. I'm thankful that I was your paramedic. I let my 12-year-old watch the podcast, the part, you know, from like 48 minutes. It was like 14 minutes long. And my dad, you know, he looks at me, he said, my dad did that. The gratitude of my 12-year-old saying, "Hey, my dad did this."
That's
You know,
awesome.
he was telling somebody that. So I met, you know, this is kind of where it all begins. You know, as growing up, Rescue 911 was a thing. You know,
Oh,
that's what I grew up watching.
tell him what
I
you
met
saw
Rob.
yesterday.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, I met Rob and got the equipment, you know, to make this possible. And he was like, "Hey, so do you know anything about him?" I was like, "No." He's like, you know, he holds up his phone, hands it to me. He's like, "What about this?" I was like, "I've watched that." He said, "Well, that's Richard." I mean, I remember as a kid sitting on green carpet and watching a box TV saying, "Hey, you know, I would love to help people."
Come on, you're killing me.
And, you know, I
Blasphemy.
never in a million years would have thought, you know, I'd got the opportunity to take care of a hero, but a movie star too, you know.
Oh, and look, this guy that's just above you, I don't know what you see on your screen, but the other guy that you see that's just above you, he was in that episode too.
Wow, that's even better, you know. That makes it that much better.
I
So
wasn't on the call. I was a teacher's pet, so I got to play in the show. But it was being in front of him and Stanton, and I'm gonna tell you something, David. Those dudes were freaking immortals down here. They looked at
Absolutely.
movie star lifesavers, and they are movie star lifesavers. Him and Stanton and the rest of the crew.
in my
Johnny
opinion,
and Roy. They were Johnny and Roy.
real life.
You know how many times I got compared to one of them? I forget which one it was.
Johnny Gage.
Johnny
Probably so.
Gage.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many ER nurses said, "You remind me of Johnny Gage," you know? And,
Remember the watch party at Frankie's?
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Parts of it anyway, huh?
Well, I
We
bet
remember where it
I
started.
bet that's a whole story in itself.
If you make it to the coast, bring your boy.
I will. I'll do that. I got my sister actually lives in Gulfport, north part of Gulfport. She's married to a Gulfport cop, and we come every couple months or so and spend the day. But I definitely have to look you up and get up with you. I think my boy would enjoy that.
I'll tell you this, before my accident, I was never afraid of heights. I was a firefighter. I, I had to climb ladders, you know, all that. I got a pilot's license. I climbed, tallest tower I climbed was 1,800 feet. Never bothered me. Did not bother me whatsoever. Fly airplanes didn't bother me. Since my accident, I don't know, call it PTSD, whatever you want to call it, but now, if I get on a step ladder, I am nervous as a disreputable woman in a religious organization.
Nervous as a tick on a dog's ass, Richard.
There you go. That's even better. Imagine,
Well-
imagine you just broke your neck and you're thinking, I'm the smartest son of a bitch here when it comes to medicine. I'm the most medically trained.
That's what
No.
I'm saying. You weren't the smartest on critical thought before the incident took place.
Right. But I knew I was the most medically trained. Now, my son-in-law was in the Army. He was he got, what is it? They give him,
The medic
Combat-
training. Yeah, combat medic.
he'd been through that, but he was so worried that he was going to be held responsible. He couldn't function.
Yeah.
But Richard,
You know, you say until I showed up. I mean, hell, even after I showed up, you was still the most experienced person there.
but not the most medically trained. You actually probably had more training and depth of knowledge than Richard had. Now, hey, Richard, epi, atropine, bicarb, lidocaine, how many of those are still given in code situations? I'm going to ask you, Richard. Don't say nothing, David. Richard, epi, atropine, bicarb, lidocaine, how many are given in code situations today?
Wait a minute. Pretty much every code started off with do bicarb.
Given today, not what we did. What's given today?
Yeah. All right, David.
he ain't gonna answer that.
No, well, he doesn't know.
So epi is your first line. Atropine is not given unless you got Ross with a Brady pulse. Lidocaine's bicarb's not given to 20 minutes.
That was a first line drug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lidocaine when?
That's only your antidysrhythmic. So that's later on down the line unless it's immediate anti-rhythmic problem. So
Mike, what was the rule? Nobody died without D50 on board.
Oh hell yeah! Yeah, if they had an altered LOC, meaning they couldn't talk to you, they got D50 regardless.
well, now that's frowned upon. Stroke. You got to worry about them having a stroke. That's a big concern today.
Stroking out with D50?
Yeah, you can cause the stroke to be worse if you give them D50.
Yeah, I can see
No,
that.
Blowing a vein and getting necrosis in the tissue.
Well, what
I'd
about
much rather have that than a stroke.
Yeah.
What about beryllium tosylate? Y'all carry that?
I don't even think I've ever heard of that. So
For that.
Second line drug to lidocaine.
Do what?
Second line drug to lidocaine.
Begins with
it's amiodarone or lidocaine. So y'all getting to experience the changes that I deal with is totally different from what y'all say. I'm like, you just asked about a drug. I'm like, what the hell is that? I ain't never heard of that. Y'all talking about LifePak 5s, and I seen the Rescue 911 thing that really refreshed my memory of how much EMS as a whole has come. And I'm thankful for that. I think we're finna see some more changes. I think we're going to see some reoccurring things that was got away from that we're going back to, like mass trousers. That's funny y'all talked about that because that's out there.
Is the CAD still used?
Is the what?
AD,
CAD still used.
Right.
you can
The
mobilize people in a car from the waist up with straps, and it's got carry straps and a head.
yeah, it's a KD.
Yeah.
That's what I know it as.
Yeah.
I
They'll use them.
probably used it 3 times in 9 years, and
Greatest
one of them was at a racetrack.
Hey,
ever.
they're great for hip fractures. Put it on
That's
upside
what I
down,
hear.
put a pillow between the knees.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
But they were great for education. You couldn't move your head. You could have put one on Richard and slung him up out of the freaking sky, out of the ground, and his head moving. His neck is staying there.
You could have drug him behind the truck with a CAD.
Yeah.
Discussion out there taking the ET tubes away from providers. I think that's a horrible decision.
Huh?
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's some discussion out there about that. I think that's a very bad decision.
From 1989 to 2006, and I'm not bragging, this is a fact. From 1989 to 2006, I missed one ET tube.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever not being able to place one. I don't think I've ever had that happen. I don't know how many I've done, but I don't recall that. And end tidal CO2 is big today. That's a big push. I learned that when I was going to paramedic school, that if you get an end tidal reading, there's no doubt that you're in the right place. That's a big telltale. So that was beating my head in paramedic school, and I've always been able to get that. So
Silly us, we used a stethoscope to figure out we were in the right place.
Yeah, pump left, good. Back it up a half a centimeter.
That's right.
yeah. I still believe in listening, but that is a tool. That's a electrical capture that a lawyer can't argue with. Versus they said, well, you didn't hear what you.
Okay.
That's the way it's looked at today.
All right, everybody stop. We're way past my time.
Go to bed, old man.
I have no idea. Apparently, there's some sort of electronic way to identify the location.
Well, that they're getting a good return of.
It goes through the Life Pack 12, and it measures the exhaled carbon dioxide coming out of the tube. And if it's got the right amount, if the tube's in the right spot, you can't get this gas out of your stomach. So you didn't get the esophagus.
Okay, back up. Life Pack 12. What happened to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11?
They went from 5 to 10 to 12. I don't know who did that.
We actually have 15s at the service I'm at now, and the Zoll's got an X series.
Kiss my ass, you little shit.
No,
And they read it.
So there's actually a Life Pack 35 now.
We're talking about is, we would put a tube in, we'd auscultate, it's good. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't need a machine to tell me if I'm in the right spot, was kind of what my point was. So if your monitor fails, David, what you going to do? If your video laryngoscopy fails, what are you going to do? That's the question I was going to.
I believe in still using visual. I still believe in listening. I believe in listening to your stomach sounds. I believe in all that. I still believe in the colorimetric, but it's also preached to get that electrical capture, because then it protects you, because this is a so happy world we live in today.
Well, you have to understand where we're coming from, David, as far as you're talking to guys that didn't have a pulse oximeter on the truck. We didn't have a glucose meter on the truck. We had chem strips that we had to time how long they were and have to match the colors up on the bottle. We didn't have a machine that would take the blood pressure for us. We had to take the blood pressure ourselves. So in it's like when I go into the doctor's office, they put that machine on me and they say, oh, your blood pressure's a little high. Take that off, put a stethoscope in your ears, get a manual cuff, and take my damn blood pressure and tell me what it is. Oh, well, that's better. Yeah, no shit. You've got everything in the right spot. You're listening to the artery right. You're not counting on a machine to tell you what's going on. And that's where us old school guys are, or I am. I don't know. I'm assuming Richard and Mike's right there with me on that.
Let me put it in perspective. Okay. Uh, David is talking to us about AR-15s to guys that got
And we're
muzzled.
flintlocks.
You know, we were there was very little electronic help. When the Life Pack 10 came along, it was like, holy shit, man, it reads rhythms and all this stuff. And,
And
you
can
know,
pace.
yeah, you could pace all that stuff. But, I mean, what I've learned from this is, damn, we're old.
So, David, let me give you an example of two different things. And we already discussed this kind of with my son, but do you know how to manually read an EKG based on the blocks and know what your PR intervals are and all that? Do you know how to do that?
Absolutely. I looked at a first degree block today on a 12 lead, and that's one of the first things I learned in paramedic school that at Jones College. You know, they beat it in your head, them rules. You know, that's the first thing you learn is rules. It's all about rules. That was very big.
But do you know how to measure your elevation change by the blocks on the EKG paper?
Yep.
Okay. So here's the deal. Screens go out. So the point I was getting at about asking you if you intubating and this and that, everything can fail, but one thing that can't fail, hoping your eyes still work and you still have two hands and a light on the end of a blade, is that you can intubate somebody, whether you have end-tidal CO2 or an EKG to tell them there, or if you don't have suction to get them out. I've intubated people with a mouth full of shit before and just poked it into their lungs because I couldn't get anything in there. Had to go through their nose to get it in there because there ain't nothing you can do. So I'm going to save my life, or I'm going to try to fix. So what I'm going to get at was, and I already told this on another episode, but we had a call one time in damn near in Louisiana in the marsh. Cardiac arrest. Ambulance battery dies, but the truck didn't die. We have no radio, no lights, no sirens, no nothing. I have no way to talk to anyone. The repeater's dead on the ambulance. I can't call nobody. They didn't have no cell phone out there. We didn't have fire department backup. I took a lady from the scene. We're doing CPR, taking this dude to the hospital. I'm just going through my head, running through protocols and threw some lidocaine in there because I'd shocked him a time or two. And dude, I'm just playing doctor. My driver is a private pilot. He's got his damn FAA airplane radio up in his bag, pulls it out, calls Hancock Tower, gets a patch through to the hospital and says, hey, this is what we're coming in with. My whole point is you got to adapt to your circumstances. And if all your electronics fail, and they will, hopefully not on you and not on a critical patient, but you got to be prepared to handle the situation with what you have. And that's your brain and your arms.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll give credit where credit's due. That's one thing I take pride in is, you know, I may not be the most favorable past student for Jones, for the instructors of the previous administration, which just changed the instructor staff. They taught us how to treat a patient, not a piece of equipment. They
Very
taught us
good.
how to do hands-on. You learn how to nasally intubate somebody. You learn how to digitally intubate somebody. And we ain't talking about on just a mannequin. They put you in a situation where you would be uncomfortable to push you to that breaking point where when you were stressed out, Benji would walk by and cut the monitor off. Or he would take something out of your bag after you knew it was there and be like, all right, how you going to assess that patient? I remember pulling up on the scene and pedal, pull up at 3 o'clock in the morning, the guy sitting in a tripod position, and I can see the reflection of the lights beating off of him because he's pouring sweat. I was like, hey, we need a CPAP. I didn't need a monitor. I didn't need a SAT probe. I didn't need to get up there and listen to him. I immediately knew what was wrong with him. Tripod position, he's profusely sweating. He's in flash pulmonary edema. Like, it was a given. Full. Get to him. He's doing everything he can to answer. I was like, hey, he's coming with the stretcher, but I need you to get up and come with me. Meet me halfway. And it wasn't a question of it. As soon as he got on the stretcher, hooked the CPAP up, went to pouring the CPAP to him, and man, we're just in mirror, just seconds. It felt like he was thumbs up.
He had some space in them lungs.
Yeah, and he was like, I was like, is that better? And he's thumbs up. That's kind of like this, talking about Richard. That's a rewarding thing to
Well,
know that
Richard and
you.
I, or I know I was thinking this. I'm sure Richard was too. Where's the 80 of Lasix?
Well, that's kind of frowned upon these days too.
Yep. Grayson
That's
told us that, Rob.
Yeah,
They don't.
yeah. But I'm
LASIK?
saying that's where we were back when I was on the truck.
He may get 160 of Lasix on that starting dose.
I haven't I hadn't give Lasix in probably 7, 8 years.
Dude, I didn't go a shift without giving that shit.
That's right. Me either.
I think I,
They listed
I,
out like candy.
Yeah, he needs some Lasix.
I got to wind down because I told Rob I was functioning as a supervisor. We got a crew chief
Yeah.
out, but I got to go. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this: I love those calls where you go to them people that's ornery.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not going. I don't need to go. And you look at them without ever putting them on a cardiac monitor, without ever taking their blood pressure, and you can look at them with confidence and say, "I'll be back
In about
Yeah,
30
you just-
minutes.
if I make 30 minutes." I just hope you're not too far gone when you decide that you want me to come back.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times we've pulled up, got a refusal, drove back to post, get there, put the truck in park, and the screen turned red. The navigator that tells you, little noise box that tells you where to go, what's wrong with them. And you're like, well, damn. What am I going to have to do when I get there? How bad is it going to be? And there's several that come to mind. I pass by their house on a regular basis and be like, I saved the dude's life there because he didn't want to go to dialysis. Like, he died 30 minutes after I begged him to go, and he was adamant he didn't want to go. Or this woman, and that goes back to what your question was. I was taught not to treat equipment, treat what the patient presents. I
Right.
can walk up and look at somebody. I mean, I walk up and half your face is drooped down. I automatically know either your sugar's bad or you're having a stroke or Bell's palsy.
Bell's
All right, David, I'm gonna stop you right there. Several times you've talked about the screen turning red. I'm assuming you're talking about one of them newfangled computer things.
I am.
Okay. All right.
I am.
I come from the day when the tones went off, said get 10-8, code 2 traffic, and you get up and you get directions. Go down Fire Tower Road for 3.5 miles till you pass the dead cow on the left.
That's if they weren't busy. If they were busy, they'd tell you to get your map book out and go to page 14 and figure it out.
Right. So yeah, this whole and having said that, when I became a chief at the fire department, my big thing was to get computer CAD system installed, and I fought for that. That was one of the last things I finally got accomplished before I retired. Was I finally got a CAD system bought for us. But yeah, I can remember. I can remember Sandy Dubas giving me directions at 3 o'clock in the morning in North Hancock County. Go down this road. When you pass the dead cow on your left, the mailbox on your right, turn there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the tech savvy world now. The dispatcher don't even have to talk to you. It all makes noise and tells you turn by turn and the details of the calls. We still use radios at both services I work at because it is efficient. It's a quick way, but it could be all digital.
So,
where you don't have
that might be why we aren't getting a whole bunch of traffic with new medics on the show because they don't know what getting 10-8 is all about.
Probably not. Do they even use codes anymore?
Yeah, some of it. It's priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and then whatever the signal is. That's
Yeah,
what we.
I would
at
imagine.
both
I would
services.
imagine in EMS you still have to use signals for confidentiality.
Right.
But at the fire department, they went away from that. It's all clear voice now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if something happens, we'll revert back to clear voice. But for the sake of radio traffic and the technology we have, it's just as easy to say priority 1, signal 27G George. Well, I know that lights and sirens, that's a gunshot. You know, that makes it simple. You get a text and your screen in your computer, in your truck, your iPad, whatever it is, tablet, whatever you use, and you can click on it and you can see whatever the dispatcher put in the notes, like, chest pain, seizures, syncope, altered mental status, muscle spasms, whatever it may be. You can see that without a dispatcher having to go into detail of that.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
don't have to carry that big yellow 30-pound cell phone.
Yeah.
The
So, yeah.
RTSS.
I know Mike remembers that when
Oh
the
yeah, the
first
RTSS. Yeah.
they weighed about 30 pounds, and they would tell you that the only thing that interferes with the signal is pine needles. And I went, well, that's going to be useful in South Mississippi.
Pine trees, yes. You had to go in the middle of the road, the field, or something to do it.
So you're in the middle of the road, and you had to detail one person to just run around with that big box and try to find the signal.
So look, I gotta go after this, but I'll say this: I have worked in the EMS systems where you get to the house and be like, "Hey, do you have a house phone still?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Yeah, but you can't call long distance now."
Yeah.
And you have to call 911 because you don't know the dadgum number to the dispatch center, and they say 911, where's your emergency? Hey, you need to send the police, or hey, you need to send the coroner, or whatever. This is not
Yeah.
an ambulance call.
Right.
All right, folks. Well, look,
Dave,
I got David that's needing to go. We need to go ahead and call it a night. We're gonna let David go. David, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for saving that old bastard's life. There's several of us that are glad that you did that because he was our hero, and you were the man for him. Thank you very much.
there's a few.
Well, I'm thankful.
Thank you again, David. Thank you again. And again, tell your son that you are a hero because you saved another EMS person.
Thank you
Folks.
for this opportunity. I thank you for the feedback, and I've enjoyed this. This has been very refreshing.
Hey, keep your head up, bro. And if you feel like you're running out of energy to do it, just think back to this show right here, and you'll say, "Shit, that's why I do it."
All right, folks. Anybody that wants to call in or email in and give us ideas for this show, you can do it by going down there to the bottom of the screen. You can see gettin108@gmail.com. You can send us an email. We'll talk about whatever you send us. There's Richard's cat. That black cat walked in front of you before you fell out of that bucket. You can you can email us there. We'll talk about whatever you send us. Look forward to seeing y'all again on the next episode. Y'all come back and see us.